on the eve of the Trump tariffs, it reminds me of the firearms that are making its way from America to Canada, and something that Trudeau should have done 10 years ago and didn't. First of all, I wanted to point out how many guns just disappear from the RCMP. So these are government-owned guns that just sort of disappear, lost, etc. 813. I think that's huge amount, because they keep blaming Canadians for this, and it's so sickening because they do have serial numbers. They know where it comes from. They just won't say it. Look at all these guns going back on the streets. 469 handguns, rifles 54, total handguns stolen 119. So there's a lot of them going back and forth. And, you know, to me, it is incompetence of how much stuff gets stolen from the RCMP. The next point here, these houses, and this is the issue I'm bringing up. I didn't even know this existed. There's houses on the border between Canada and the United States. So one part of the house is America and the other part is in Canada. And this has been going on, and for 100 years. This goes back to contraband on liquor between Canada and America. And over the years, I thought that the government should just buy all this real estate that's between the two countries. Just buy it and tear it down or something like that. Just fix it, because it looks like these are the little bit of a loopholes that they have all over Canada, and it's a huge border that the government just doesn't want to fix. Dundee, Quebec is this house on the border here. And you can see here, see that one little house on the bottom here? I'll just slide over here where it says United States. See, the part of the kitchen is in America and the dining room is in Canada. This is how it works. And if you can spot the difference here, that means that someone sitting in the house has a lazy Susan, or I think a lazy Susan, or I can't remember what that's called. I think it's a lazy Susan. You just sit there and spin the wheel back and forth. When you're at a Chinese restaurant and you spin that thing in the middle of the table, that's all it is. So they can sit in the Canadian house, an American house. Well, it's on the border. Sit in the kitchen, sit on the table, put the gun on one side, and then just do the lazy Susan that comes in. And then all of a sudden, if the cops show up, here's the difference. You see, spot it here and here. You see the duck moves from the left to the right. They just slide it over and pretend that duck is something else. They just sit there on the lazy Susan and moves back and forth. And when it goes to court, it's always a gray area because of the house, which is always very bothersome. This is the actual house of these two guys that they brought in guns from America to Canada in the middle of the night on a toboggan. It's a sled for Americans that are watching. And right there, that's the property. You can see this on the property is this little cement pillar that says it's the border. And that's what they should shut down. This is another part of it, too, of the house. So that shipment was $1.6 million of guns that came across the border very, very smoothly, how that happens. And there's a lot of them. Surprisingly, there's a lot that they should clean up. The next part is these two guys that had this arrest, they have already been known by police for some Bitcoin scams that have happened in the past. So they were already aware of that. And previously they were convicted, and they did have conspiracy of possession of burglary tools. So they know about them before anyways. In this location, it's on the border between Canada and America for 100 years. It's used by smugglers, which is so sad that that happened for 100 years, and they never fixed it. They could have bought it, tore it down. Even America could have bought it too. Like, I really wonder if this was sort of all the loopholes that have done. And I understand too that I know you can print them too on a 3D printer. But even the plastic ones are drones that just cross the border, and they're very, very close borders between like locations where there's a river between, that they do this stuff as well. And you know what the real problem lies, and the reason Mendicini looked so long ago and he finally stepped down. This is years ago I made this video, and nothing was really done, and that's why it's really getting tiring. This keeps coming up with the smuggling, and it goes back and forth too with the fentanyl that's going on. It won't fix the problem. This is something when there's a federal debate and there's set topics that they have, one's accountability, immigration, reconciliation, whatever. No one talks about what issues are affecting people right now. And this border thing between Canada and America is just nuts that they do that. And they know where it comes from. They just don't want to do anything. And I blame the Canadian side because they're the ones that don't want the guns in. But then the American side as well. But then Trump, if you put a tariff on like this and tell them to fix the border, that'll do it. And with the response from the Trudeau government or the Liberal government is to print more money like the pandemic. I think almost Trump is like a beautiful chess player here because that will just have more financial strain on Canada and more of a reason to take over Canada. And it's almost like he knew, he knows the Liberals are so stuck on manufacturing of this hard candy and the immigration of bringing in those people on the most wanted lists in India. There are some of them as well. Obviously, it's not all immigrants. I'm definitely not saying that. But there are some that the Liberal government just ignores. And there was one too, I think it was called the Toronto Jane, the girl. This was a long time ago in 2015, 16, 17, where someone from Middle East left the Middle East to come to Canada to get away from ISIS, if you know what I mean. And then they were in the Toronto walking down the street and they saw the same guy that did evil things to them back home or their family members. They found him in Toronto, both of them walking. I got to look up that article. It's with the Toronto Jane. They actually tracked her. They were wondering why a woman from Toronto could go to that location in the world and walk around. They can check too at the cell towers where they're going and see how did she get so close to the very evil people down there. Anyway, I digress on that. There's a lot of issues going on. I'll look up the other video that I made, and like I said, it had to be removed from the internet, but it looks like nowadays reality sinking in more, and there's a lot more Canadian channels that are pumping stuff out there. So some things have changed, but usually before an election, this is where it's so serious, and everyone, they really watch it really heavily. Anyway, thanks for watching Canada Wide. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next video. Best of goodbyes.